Hi, and welcome back to Financial Education Fridays. My name's Jim, and let's see. This is part two of how an economy grows. The first part will be a link below the video as part of the post here. So if you want to go back and watch that video, feel free to go ahead and do that. But we're going to just move on from where we were last time. So as a quick recap, let me get this right here. Okay, as a quick recap, I had we had been talking about um, Abel, Baker, and Charlie, who were on an island, and they were able to just survive. Each day they would go out and they would fish, and each person would be able to catch one fish. Okay. Now Abel had gotten this idea because he wanted a better life. He had gotten an idea how to create a fish catcher, and that basically is a net. And so what he did was they were able to catch one fish a day. Each one of them were able to catch one fish a day, and that sustained them for the day. But Abel thought, well, if I create this net, I can catch more than one fish, and then I would have a surplus. So what did he have to do? He had a sacrifice. He took a day off from actually fishing, where he wasn't going to catch any fish, and he created this fish catcher. Now, he took a risk. He didn't know if it was going to work or not, but he took the chance. And when he created the net, he was able to catch two fish, whereas Baker and Charlie, being on that island, not having any of the technology or the fortitude to do that, they were still catching their one fish. They thought he was crazy, but now all of a sudden, because of Abel's sacrifice, he had two fish, and obviously now he has a surplus because he only needs to eat one a day, which means he had one extra. So now, what's he going to do with the one extra? Well, he's able to bank that. All right. Um, Abel underconsumed. All right, which through his sacrifice, he was able to create capital. That one extra fish is his capital. Um, he was creating 2 days of food for one day of work. But now Baker and Charlie, here they are each day. They're out there. They're trying to catch their fish. They're trying to catch their fish, and in order to live and survive. But they see Abel, who he works one day, he eats one fish, he saves the one for the next day, and he doesn't have to work. This allowed him the ability to be able to, quote unquote, start doing different things. He can think about, creating better clothing, or, having a shelter, a house or whatever have you. And because of this creation. Now, Baker and Charlie, they see Abel working one day, taking one day off, playing, doing other things, and, they want him to share the wealth. All right. Well, how come, we can't use your net, right? You know, uh, Abel, you know, he thought about it. I mean, it's not that he didn't want to help them. However, it was his asset that he created. It was through his, forward thinking. It was the things that he did that was able to produce. They didn't do anything. And so, but, he also felt like, well, maybe they, I mean, obviously you want to help fellow men. And you think about philanthropists. I mean, look at Bill Gates. You know, he went and bought the software system and put it on the computer, and created Microsoft. And he put in his own work, and was his own idea, and he created his own extra wealth. And then after that, when he went and he said, okay, well, I'm done with this. Now he's going to do, and he's doing philanthropic things in Africa, and different places like this. So it's not like these guys don't, the wealthy don't want to help their fellow human beings. It's just that, you know, nothing, nothing good comes from free to a certain extent, all right? Abel's thinking, well, I sacrificed, I did the hard work. Well, what if I, give them the fish catcher and the net, and they break it? Or what if they don't give it back? I'm back to doing, one fish a day, okay? So he said, no, you guys, if you want to make your, if you want to do what I'm doing, all right, you can go out and make your own, right? But Charlie says, well, what if mine doesn't work, And then he says, I'll starve. Now remember, Abel took that sacrifice. He took that risk, okay? He didn't know if it was going to work, right? And now Charlie is saying, well, what if mine doesn't work? Well, there's risk in that too, okay? Baker said, well, lend us some fish while we make our own nets. Because remember, Abel had to take a day off and he had to starve for the day. He didn't eat that day while he was making that net. And Baker's saying, well, lend us your one fish so that we don't starve and we're not hungry while we make our own nets. Okay. But Abel, if he lends the fish um, to them, they're going to get something for nothing, and it may not be returned. Remember, that's his capital that he's giving to them, right? Um, and their nets might not work. Now he's going to lend them the fish, and while they're building their nets. But what if their nets don't work? Okay, and then they'll want to, lend me more, lend me more, lend me more, and uh, none of the nets ever work. What ends up happening? Okay, well, basically, Abel did all of the work. He's catching all of the fish. These guys aren't doing anything except trying to create these nets. In reality, when you think about society, a lot of people don't do anything, period. Okay, and they're, oh, give me, give me, give me, creating an entitlement mentality. Oh, you're rich, you should give to me. Well, they forget that Abel sacrificed, took the risk, did the hard work, and produced in order to have additional capital. They're not entitled to his work. Okay. Um, you know, what he could do, Abel could do is he could lend them, right, the fish, okay, um, with the hope that they pay them back. All right. Now the question is how much will he get in return? I mean, if I lend you one fish and I get one fish, he's not getting any return on his investment. Okay. He needs to be able to lend and get one back. Okay. Um, if he sits there and he says, okay, well, I'll lend you one fish and I get two back, now he's got a return on his investment. And that's what having capital and lending it out is about. I'm going to lend it so that my money makes money. My capital makes money, okay? I'm getting a return, an ROI on my investment. Now think about it. If he lends them the net, okay, Baker then, he'd have two fish, and Charlie, he'd have two fish, okay? With those fish, um, if he goes and he lends it. So these guys say, okay, well, I'm going to be able to catch two fish. I'll eat one and then I have to give Abel the other one. And the same with Charlie. All right. And what ends up happening is they're not actually, they're doing the work. Okay. They'll be able to make the net. They'll do the work, but they're not getting any further ahead. So the amount that he's lending it for is too great. But what if he says, hey, look it, how about if I lend it for, you know, he's able to catch two, but how about if instead of making a return of one, you give me half of a fish, okay? And Charlie, he'll catch two fish and he returns a half. So here you have, between the two of them, they're catching four fish. Now, here is one fish because that's the interest on the loan, all right? And Baker is eating one, and Charlie is eating one. That's a total of three. One, two, three. And between Baker and Charlie, they still have one extra fish left over. So now all of a sudden he's lending at an interest rate that is still, that these guys can, actually profit from. Okay. So Abel is getting a return on his investment. Baker and Charlie, they're able to still eat. They're able to pay back the loan, and they're still able to create an additional amount of capital. Okay, so I want you just to take a look at the dynamics here of what happens when there's lending. Okay, you have to look at both extremes. You find that middle ground so that all parties benefit. Okay, now realize, and this will be for our next episode, that Abel doesn't have to. He does not have to lend the nets. Okay, he doesn't need to make the loan. Okay, and we'll explore that a little bit in our next lesson. But for now, just realize that if you go back over, Abel sacrificed. He took a risk. He created capital, and he created a surplus for himself. Baker and Charlie, how can it benefit them? Well, one of the ways Abel can help them is by loaning them, but realize that he can't be too greedy because, if he is, Baker and Charlie have no motivation because he's being too greedy. They're not getting anything out of it. He has to find a middle ground where all three benefit. Okay, but realize that he also still has risk in that if he lends the net to Baker and Charlie, he may not get it back. If he lends them the fish, they may not pay it back. Okay, so he can say, oh, I'm not going to do this. All right, and that's something that we can look at the next time, for the next episode, the risk on lending the fish. Okay, all right, that'll be for next Friday. Every week, try to tune into the Financial Education Fridays, and I'll add a little, add a little, add a little. And if you have any suggestions, feel free to comment and like on the page. All right, thanks, and have a great day. Oh, by the way, it's Memorial Day weekend, and have a good weekend.